Number 9. Howard Baker. In late 2014, a man walked into a bar in Fort Worth, Texas, and began firing bullets, killing 41-year-old Jeffrey Brady and wounding 2 others. Police identified the gunman as 62-year-old Howard Baker, the leader of the local chapter of the Bandidos motorcycle club. His victim, Brady, was a member of a rival bike club called the Ghost Riders. Along with the fatal shooting, police accused Baker of ordering fellow Bandidos members to storm the bar. His defense lawyer argued that he wasn't involved in the crime, that he held a steady job, and that prosecutors could only prove that he was a member of a motorcycle club. But a jury found Baker guilty of murder, engaging in organized crime, and being the leader of a criminal street gang. He received 2 40-year sentences and a 45-year sentence, and is serving them concurrently. If he manages by some miracle to live to 107, he could see freedom again. Number 8. Ben Notorious GEPPERT. Ben GEPPERT was still a teenager when he became a career criminal. He joined the Gold Coast chapter of the Hells Angels Club in Australia. But he learned the hard way that the biker lifestyle isn't all it's cracked up to be. GEPPERT has spent most of his adult life in and out of prison and has repeatedly made international headlines for his crimes. In one of his more recent cases, GEPPERT allegedly became violent while driving during a 2019 vacation with his ex-girlfriend, Instagram model Elena Vader. Fearing for her safety, Vader leaped from the moving vehicle to escape from GEPPERT. Police had to tase him 3 times to subdue him, and he served 6 months in jail for the incident. Later that year, GEPPERT's 17-year-old brother, Harrison, was stabbed to death. Ben had introduced his little brother to the gangster lifestyle and felt responsible for his death. He vowed to go on the straight and narrow and left the Hells Angels. GEPPERT became a poster child for the Queensland government's efforts to persuade young men away from gangs. He even spoke in a video about how being a gangster had ruined his life and made it nearly impossible for him to find a normal job. Any efforts that GEPPERT made to clean up his act were short-lived. Before the video even aired, police arrested him for committing a violent burglary over a drug debt. He got into even more trouble for repeatedly calling his ex-girlfriend from jail and violating a restraining order she had against him. GEPPERT received a 3-year prison sentence for his most recent crimes, but may not serve all of it behind bars. He became eligible for parole late last year, and while this may seem like a light punishment for a repeat violent offender, the judge reportedly went easy on him because his social media activity had made him a target among other prisoners. GEPPERT will probably spend most of his short time behind bars in isolation for his own protection. The judge felt that this was punishment enough. Number 7. A satanic slaying. One day in 2011, 3 men left a Hells Angels party in Pittsfield, Massachusetts together. They kidnapped, stabbed, and shot 3 men, and then dismembered and buried their bodies. The trio of suspects included Hells Angels member Adam Lee Hall, self-proclaimed Satanist Caius Viovis, and a man named David Chalou. They killed their victim, David Glasser, because he was going to testify against Hall in an assault case. They killed the 2 other victims, Edward Frampton and Robert Chadwell, to eliminate any witnesses to Glasser's murder. After committing the brutal triple murder, the suspects went to the local Hells Angels clubhouse and bragged about what they had just done. A few days later, friends reported the victims missing, and the police found their remains. An investigation led detectives to one suspect's home, where they found hatchets, knives, a machete, and other tools that they believe were used to cut up the victims' bodies. During the trial, a former employer of Viovis said that he had a history of hanging out with the Hells Angels and was trying to improve his credit score so he could buy a motorcycle and officially join the club. It's hard not to wonder if Viovis took part in the murder to improve his street cred. The courts found Hall and his accomplices guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, and they are serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. Number 6. Twin Peaks Shootout. On May 17, 2015, members of several motorcycle clubs, including the Cossacks and the Bandidos, met at a Twin Peaks restaurant in Waco, Texas, to discuss bikers' rights. Over 200 people were at the meeting, which was being monitored by police from outside. During the afternoon, a shootout erupted between the clubs and the police, who returned fire after the bikers shot at them. 9 bikers, including 8 Cossacks and 1 Bandido, were killed, and 18 were injured. Prosecutors charged 177 of the bikers, which were almost all of them in connection with the gunfight. A lot of people accused the cops of going overboard with the charges. The cases played out in court over the next 4 years, leading to 0 convictions. Nearly 90 of the accused bikers filed lawsuits accusing the authorities of violating their civil rights and arresting them without probable cause. A U.S. judge threw the cases out last year, but the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals recently reinstated them. The appeals court will now hear lawsuits again because of the ruling by the same judge who threw them out. Number 5. Smuggling slip-up. In 2015, Australian expat Luke Joshua Cook, his partner Kanyarat Wadifatak, and an American expat named Tyler Gerard allegedly agreed to smuggle a half-ton of methamphetamine into Thailand for the Hells Angels. The supposed plan was to transport the $300 million shipment by boat as part of an illegal import business they ran. After picking up the product from a Chinese ship, a Thai Navy vessel approached the trio's yacht. They reportedly dumped the stash overboard and avoided trouble for the time being. The meth washed ashore and locals turned it in to authorities, who couldn't identify any suspects at the time. An investigation eventually led detectives to Cook, Wadifatak, and Gerard. Prosecutors claimed that the Hells Angels had paid Cook $10 million to move the drugs. Cook's lawyer argued that someone had framed him for the crime. The court sentenced him to death in 2018, and he appealed, but they upheld his conviction. The Supreme Court eventually acquitted Cook and Wadifatak following a long, drawn-out legal battle over a witness's credibility and a lack of evidence linking them to the drugs. Cook returned to Australia and got back together with his 2 children after quarantining for 2 weeks to ensure that he didn't have COVID-19, which was the least of his worries after barely avoiding his death sentence. Number 4. Biker Beatdown. While driving through Harlem in New York City with his 36-year-old son earlier this year, a 64-year-old motorist accidentally tapped a dirt bike with his car. The biker, who was riding illegally in the street, had allegedly blown a red light right before the incident. Fearing for his safety, the older man fled the scene. But traffic moved slowly in the Big Apple, and it wasn't long before the biker and his crew caught up to the vehicle. The group of 5 young men, which included 4 motorbikers and 1 person on a 4-wheeler, swarmed the car and yanked the 2 men out of it. They beat the pair brutally and made off with a cell phone, debit and credit cards, $150 cash, and the father's and son's IDs. Someone caught the disturbing encounter on video, which soon went viral. The victims were taken to the hospital in stable condition, but were left traumatized by the ordeal. Speaking with the New York Post, the man's daughter said that her father was recovering from a concussion and was mentally not okay. Within weeks, the NYPD arrested 3 suspects for their alleged involvement in the vicious assault. 35-year-old Kareem Nelson, 29-year-old James McMurrin, and 30-year-old Antoine Joyce face a slew of charges including robbery, gang assault, and assault. The younger victim, who asked not to be named, told the New York Post that he was doing okay, but that he was worried about his father and wanted justice for the senseless attack. Number 3. Repeat offender rejects plea deal. In 2019, the Hells Angels Rhode Island chapter's leader, 30-year-old Joseph Lancia, allegedly fired a gun at a vehicle being driven by Richard Starnino, a former prospect who had tried to join the club. The two were reportedly embroiled in an ongoing feud. Surveillance video captured the incident outside of a local Hells Angels clubhouse. Police arrested Lancia, who posted $100,000 bail, and they released him. Lancia claimed the victim was a police informant who had pointed a gun first and accused law enforcement of trying to entrap him. He found himself in hot water yet again while awaiting trial. This time, Lancia was involved in an altercation at a strip club where witnesses reported seeing several Hells Angels members arguing with managers and security guards. Police arrived on the scene to find the assistant manager bleeding from a head wound. He fell unconscious, and first responders rushed him to the hospital, but he said that he didn't want to press charges. Officers took Lancia into custody on suspicion of committing the assault, and he served 2 months behind bars for violating the terms of his bail. Altogether, he faced 9 charges relating to both incidents, including felony assault and battery, disorderly conduct, assault with intent to commit murder, and carrying a pistol without a permit. Lancia rejected 2 plea offers, including one that would have sentenced him to 8 years in prison and another for 5 years. He ultimately agreed to plead no contest to the gun charge and felony assault and battery in exchange for having some of the more serious charges dropped, and is currently serving a 5-year sentence. After his release, Lancia will be on probation for 10 years. Number 2. Marauding Mongols. In late February, police were called to the Last Chance Bar and Grill in Belmead, Texas, to investigate an alleged assault. According to an arrest report, 6 bikers had surrounded a man and beat him with their fists and beer bottles, leaving him with head injuries. It was clear, based on the suspects' matching attire and surveillance footage of the brutal beatdown, that they were all part of some type of club or gang. The Texas Anti-Gang Unit identified the men as members of the Mongols motorcycle club, which began pushing its way into the state following the deadly 2015 Twin Peaks shootout between the Cossacks, the Bandidos, and members of law enforcement. The prosecutors charged Emmanuel Cesar Ortiz, Justin Paul Prim, Ramon Narciso Ruiz, Justin Nasir Shah, Joshua Ryan Rios, and Michael J. Grady with engaging in organized criminal activity. They're also accused of conspiring to commit aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The victim, 38-year-old Kenneth Edward Butcher, faces a third-degree felony charge of having a gun in a prohibited place. Following the incident, the Last Chance Bar and Grill banned customers from wearing clothing that displays any sort of gang affiliation. No gang-related brawls have broken out since then. Number 1. Big Biker Bust. Residents of Portsmouth, Virginia were deeply concerned earlier this year when police surrounded an inconspicuous building behind a local pizza shop and busted down the door. Acting on tips from a previous arrest, they were zeroing in on the suspected clubhouse of an outlaw motorcycle club called the Wheels of Soul. A few months earlier, detectives had arrested the gang's vice president, Ronald Matthews, on gun and drug charges. While executing a search warrant inside Matthews' home, they found drugs, dozens of weapons, and documents that led them to the suspected clubhouse. The findings also suggested that the organization was involved in illicit business up and down the East Coast. The allegations shocked law-abiding citizens, especially since the clubhouse raid happened in a low-crime area. Local resident Chris Standard told news station WTKR that the bikers didn't seem like that type of gang, and there's a reason for that. Captain Tommy Potter with the Isle of Wight County Sheriff's Office said that the Wheels of Soul's members deliberately keep a low profile. They purposely came across as harmless biking enthusiasts to portray a favorable public image. Potter described the bikers' appearance as a forefront and a face they put on. In his words, behind that veil, they are involved in criminal activity. And the strategy clearly works, considering how surprised civilians were when they learned that illegal activity may have been going on right under their noses for quite some time. But no matter how innocent the club made themselves seem, the law caught up with them and revealed their true colors. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get caught insulting a group of bikers or work an 8-hour shift non-stop without being allowed to use the bathroom? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more great videos.